The Kythera homeworld had not seen a defeated fleet return in over 10,000 years. When the remnants of Vexmac's force limped back to their sacred hunting grounds, the biomechanical docks barely recognized their own ships. Hulls were scarred beyond normal regeneration. Bioneural networks operated on backup systems, and most shocking of all, several vessels had been completely taken over by human crews. Elder Zixthara stood in the council chambers, studying reports that defied everything her species believed about the nature of predator and prey. The humans had not merely defeated a Kythera fleet, they had captured it, studied it, and turned it against its creators. "Show me the recordings," she commanded. The bio-walls displayed footage from the battle's final moments. Human soldiers wearing adapted biomechanical armor taken from dead Kythera warriors moved through the corridors of captured hunting ships with deadly efficiency. They had learned to use Kythera weapons, pilot Kythera vessels, and most disturbing of all, they had begun to think like Kythera hunters. "They are becoming us," whispered War Chief Kralvex. "The prey has absorbed the predator." But the most shocking revelation came when the recording showed Dr. Sarah Chen in the trophy chamber of the Apex slaughter. She was no longer the desperate survivor who had escaped the Meridian's destruction. Something fundamental had changed in her during the months of hunting and being hunted. She moved with predatory grace, her eyes scanning the chamber's collection of preserved specimens from extinct species with the calculating gaze of an apex predator. When she spoke to the captured Vexmac, her voice carried the same tone of confident superiority that the Kythera had used on their prey for millennia. "Your species made a fundamental error," Sarah said, circling the bound Kythera commander like a hunter examining trapped prey. "You assumed that intelligence and adaptability were separate from predatory instinct. You never considered that a prey species might evolve beyond your comprehension." Vexmac's mandibles clicked in defiance, but his compound eyes showed something the Kythera had never experienced before: fear of a superior predator. "Impossible," he growled. "We are the apex. We have hunted for millions of years." "And that's exactly why you lost," Sarah replied. "You've been hunting the same way for millions of years. You never evolved because you never needed to. Every species you encountered was either prey or avoided you entirely. But humanity is different." She gestured to the trophy cases around them, each containing the preserved remains of species the Kythera had driven to extinction. "Do you know what makes humans unique among all these specimens? We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to dominate." The recording showed Sarah accessing the Apex Slaughter's bioneural databases with ease, her hands moving across alien interfaces as if she had been born to use them. The virus she had introduced hadn't just corrupted the ship's systems, it had given her complete control over them. "The viral weapon was just the beginning," she explained to her captive audience. "Every piece of your technology, every hunting technique, every biological adaptation, we've studied it all, and now we're going to use it better than you ever did." Elder Zixithera felt something she had never experienced in her 1,000-year lifespan: the certainty that her species was no longer the apex predator of the galaxy. The humans had done more than defeat them in battle. They had proven themselves superior hunters. The evidence was overwhelming. Human fleets now patrolled systems that had been Kythera hunting grounds for centuries. Human soldiers used biomechanical weapons and armor that surpassed Kythera technology. Most terrifying of all, humans had begun hunting the Kythera themselves, tracking down isolated hunting packs and eliminating them with ruthless efficiency. "What are your recommendations?" Zixthera asked the assembled war chiefs. "Immediate evacuation of all frontier hunting grounds," reported War Chief Thexmar. "Human hunter-killer teams are systematically eliminating our forward positions. They use our own tactics against us, but with technological advantages we cannot match." "Technological advantages?" Zixithera questioned. "They have learned to combine our biomechanical systems with their quantum technologies," Thexmar explained. "The result is hybrid weapons that are more effective than anything either species developed independently." The recordings continued, showing human vessels that were barely recognizable as the crude ships they had been just months before. The captured Kythera technology had been integrated and improved upon with stunning speed. Biomechanical hulls carried quantum resonance weapons. Living armor was enhanced with synthetic materials that provided superior protection. Neural interfaces allowed human pilots to control bioships with an intuitive understanding that matched or exceeded Kythera capabilities. "They are not just using our technology. observed War Chief Vexkara. They are evolving it, making it better. The final recording was perhaps the most disturbing. It showed Sarah Chen standing on the bridge of the captured Apex slaughter, now redesignated as the human vessel Apex Hunter. She was surrounded by a crew of humans who had undergone biomechanical augmentation, their bodies enhanced with Kythera technology to create hybrid beings that combined the best of both species. Captain Chen, one of her officers, reported, "We've detected a Kythera breeding colony in the Zarian system. Estimated population 50,000. Sarah's response chilled the Kythera observers to their cores. "Excellent. Deploy Hunter Teams Alpha through Delta. I want every adult predator eliminated but preserve the juveniles for study. We need to understand their development patterns if we're going to breed better." On's Elder Zixthera realized with horror that the humans weren't just hunting the Kythera, they were planning to domesticate them, to turn the galaxy's apex predators into tools for human expansion. "This Chen creature," she whispered, "she has become something worse than we ever were." The truth was even more complex than the Kythera realized. Sarah Chen's transformation wasn't just physical or technological, it was psychological. Months of being hunted had awakened something primal in her, something that went beyond simple survival instinct. She had not just learned to think like a predator, she had evolved into something that made the Kythera look like prey. Aboard the Apex Hunter, Sarah studied tactical displays showing the distribution of Kythera forces throughout the galaxy. Her hybrid crew worked with mechanical efficiency, their biomechanical enhancements allowing them to process information and make decisions at speeds that would have been impossible for unaugmented humans. "Analysis complete, Captain," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Reeves. His eyes now had the compound structure of Kythera vision organs, giving him perception across multiple electromagnetic spectra. The Kythera homeworld is defended by approximately 10,000 hunting vessels. Formidable, Sarah mused, but not insurmountable. How long until our breeding programs produce the next generation of hunter killers? 6 months for the first batch, replied Dr. Martinez. Not the original Dr. Martinez who had died with the Meridian, but her clone, grown from genetic samples and enhanced with Kythera biotechnology. The hybrid offspring show remarkable potential, superior to both parent species in every measurable category. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had not just survived the Kythera threat, they had absorbed it, improved upon it, and were now preparing to surpass it entirely. The galaxy's new apex predators would be human Kythera hybrids, beings that combined human ingenuity with Kythera predatory instinct. "Begin preparations for the final hunt," Sarah commanded. "It's time to claim our place at the top of the food chain." In the depths of the Kythera homeworld, Elder Zixthara made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months before. She activated the ancient emergency protocols, sending signals to every Kythera vessel in the galaxy. The message was simple. The great hunt is over. We are no longer the predators. Run. For the first time in their species' history, the Kythera were fleeing, but Sarah Chen and her hybrid forces were already hunting them, and in this new galaxy where humanity ruled the apex, there would be nowhere to hide. The prey had become the predator and the hunt would never end. Sarah Chen's plan was audacious to the point of insanity. As she explained the details to Admiral Walsh through encrypted quantum channels, even the hardened military commander felt her stomach turn at the implications. "You want to let them capture you," Walsh said slowly. "Voluntarily." "Not just capture," Sarah replied from her hidden position in the asteroid field. "I want them to think they've caught the ultimate prize, the human who has been hunting their hunters, delivered directly into their hands." The plan relied on everything Sarah had learned about Kythera psychology. They were predators, but they were also collectors. Their trophy chambers contained specimens from 1,000 extinct species, preserved as monuments to their hunting prowess. The chance to capture the human who had turned the tables on them would be irresistible. "But once they have you aboard their ship," Torres began, "they'll want to study me, understand how I've been so successful against them," Sarah continued. "Kythera bioships are living entities. They process information through organic neural networks. If I can introduce the right kind of virus into their system from the inside." Walsh understood. Sarah wasn't planning to be rescued. She was planning to become a biological weapon, one that would give humanity access to intact Kithara technology, while simultaneously crippling their ability to use it. The risks are enormous, Walsh pointed out. If they detect the virus before it takes effect, you'll be killed immediately. Admiral, I've been living on borrowed time since the Meridian was destroyed, Sarah replied. This is the best use I can make of whatever time I have left. The preparations took 72 hours. Sarah's pod was carefully modified to appear damaged and vulnerable, while hiding the sophisticated viral weapons she would need. Her own biological systems were enhanced with synthetic components that could survive the Kithara's examination procedures long enough for her plan to work. Most importantly, human fleets were positioned throughout the system, ready to capitalize on the chaos that would follow Sarah's infiltration of the Kithara command ship. High Commander Vexmac received the intelligence report while reviewing final preparations for the assault on Earth. His biomechanical sensors had detected the damaged human vessel drifting through the outer asteroid field, its power signatures failing, and its life support systems critical. The Chen human, his intelligence officer reported. Our analysis confirms her identity. She appears to be attempting to reach the inner system for rescue. Vexmac studied the sensor data with predatory interest. After months of being hunted by this particular human, the opportunity to capture her alive was too valuable to ignore. She represented the pinnacle of human adaptation, the ultimate expression of their prey species' evolution toward predatory behavior. Divert hunting pack Zeta-7 to intercept, he ordered. I want her brought aboard the Apex Slaughter alive and unharmed. This trophy will be the crown jewel of our collection. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of Kithara biomechanical tendrils penetrating her pod's hull. But this time she didn't resist. She allowed the alien boarding organisms to flood her ship's interior, knowing that they would detect her life signs and report back to their mother vessel. The capture process was surprisingly gentle. The Kithara had perfected techniques for preserving valuable specimens, and Sarah found herself encased in a biomechanical cocoon that maintained perfect life support while rendering her helpless. As her pod was drawn into the belly of the massive Kithara flagship, she began the final phase of her preparation. The viral weapons hidden in her body were unlike anything she had used before. These weren't designed to kill Kithara biotechnology, but to subvert it, turning their own systems into tools for human intelligence gathering. If successful, the virus would give humanity access to the Kithara's entire tactical database while remaining undetected until it was too late to stop. Vexmac inspected his prize in the flagship's trophy chamber. Sarah floated in a transparent, biomechanical sphere, conscious but immobilized, her eyes tracking his movement with defiant intelligence. The famous Dr. Chen, he said, his translator rendering his clicks and growls into passable English. You have provided exceptional sport. Your tactics showed genuine predatory instinct. Coming from the galaxy's most successful predator, I'll take that as a compliment, Sarah replied. Her voice transmitted through the sphere's bioacoustic interface. Indeed. We will study you extensively. Your neural patterns, your tactical thinking, your biological adaptations. When we understand what makes you so effective, we can incorporate those traits into our own hunting methods. This was exactly what Sarah had hoped to hear. The Kithara planned to interface their bioneural networks directly with her brain, seeking to download and analyze her tactical knowledge. It would be the perfect opportunity to introduce her viral payload into their most sensitive systems. Before you begin, Sarah said, I'm curious about something. How do you plan to adapt to humanity's next evolution? Vexmac's compound eyes focused on her with interest. What evolution? You've been fighting individual humans, scattered colonies, defensive actions, but you've never faced what we become when we're truly threatened. You've never seen humanity at war. As if summoned by her words, the Apex Slaughter's alarm systems began screaming. The flagship's biosensors had detected massive energy signatures approaching from multiple vectors. The human fleet, hidden throughout the system's asteroid fields and gas giant shadows, was revealing itself in coordinated attack formations. Impossible, Vexmac snarled. Our sensors showed no human fleet in this system. Stealth technology, Sarah explained calmly. We've been learning from you, studying your sensor systems, developing countermeasures. Did you really think I was alone out here? The first human attack waves struck the Kythera fleet with devastating precision. The quantum resonance weapons had been improved again, now capable of penetrating the biomechanical countermeasures the aliens had developed. More importantly, the human ships moved with tactical coordination that matched anything the Kythera could achieve. Admiral Walsh commanded the assault from the bridge of the Valiant, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. All units, execute pattern Delta 7. Target their command vessels first. The battle was unlike any previous engagement. Human ships darted between Kythera biovessels like wolves attacking a herd, using hit-and-run tactics that prevented the aliens from bringing their superior regenerative capabilities to bear. Each human ship was expendable. What mattered was inflicting maximum damage before the Kythera could adapt. Aboard the Apex Slaughter, Vexmac found himself fighting a battle on multiple fronts. His fleet was under coordinated attack, while his most valuable prisoner taunted him with information about human capabilities he had never suspected. "Begin the neural interface immediately," he commanded. "I want every piece of tactical data in this human's mind downloaded to our systems." The biomechanical examination sphere began to extend neural tendrils toward Sarah's skull. This was the moment she had been waiting for. As the alien technology made contact with her nervous system, she activated the viral weapons hidden in her enhanced biology. The virus was a masterpiece of biological engineering, designed to mimic Kythera neural patterns while carrying a devastating payload. As it spread through the flagship's bio-neural networks, it began copying and transmitting data to the human fleet, while simultaneously introducing subtle corruptions into the ship's control systems. Vexmac realized something was wrong when his ship's weapons began firing on their own vessels. The Apex Slaughter's bio-neural networks were turning against themselves, their adaptive algorithms corrupted by viral code that made them identify other Kythera ships as threats. "The human!" he roared. "She's infected our systems." But it was too late. The virus had already spread to other ships through the fleet's bio-neural communication links. Across the Kythera formation, hunting vessels began attacking each other as their corrupted systems identified friend as foe. Sarah smiled as the biomechanical sphere dissolved around her. The virus had been programmed to release her once it achieved sufficient penetration of the ship's systems. She was now free aboard a crippled Kythera flagship, with access to their most sensitive tactical information. "Now you understand," she told Vexmac, as he watched his fleet tear itself apart. "Humanity doesn't just adapt to threats. We turn them into weapons. We make our enemies' strengths into our advantages. And we never, ever stop hunting." The tide of the war had turned, but the greatest revelations were yet to come. The emergency session of the Kythera High Council convened in the sacred hunting chambers of their homeworld. For the first time in recorded history, a formal retreat had been called. High Commander Vexmac stood before the assembled war chiefs, his biomechanical armor still bearing scars from the New Hebrides engagement. "The prey has evolved," Vexmac reported, his words causing ripples of disbelief through the chamber. "They wield weapons that turn our own biology against us. Our ships dissolve. Our hunters die." Elder Zixthera, oldest of the war chiefs, flexed her ancient hunting claws in contemplation. She had lived through 1,000 successful hunts, seen entire species reduced to trophies in the collection chambers. Never had she witnessed prey that could threaten the hunters themselves. "Show us," she commanded. The chamber's bio walls shifted to display recordings from the New Hebrides battle. The assembled war chiefs watched in stunned silence as one of their most advanced hunting ships was reduced to corroded biomatter by the humans' viral weapons. "Impossible," hissed War Chief Kralvex. "No species has ever developed such specific countermeasures against our technology." "The humans are different," Vexmac replied. "They learn faster than any prey we have encountered. They adapt their tactics between engagements, and they have produced individuals who think like hunters." The mention of individual humans thinking like hunters was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Vexmac's report. The Kythera understood pack dynamics, coordinated attacks, even technological superiority, but they had never faced prey that could match their predatory instincts on an individual level. "This human Chen," Elder Zixthera said, studying the tactical analysis. "She hunts us with the patience of a true predator. She studies our weaknesses, sets traps, and strikes at the optimal moment. This is not the behavior of prey, which is why I recommend immediate extermination protocols. Vexmac responded. Deploy the Grand Fleet. Burn every human world to ash before they can spread their knowledge further. The chamber erupted in clicking arguments. Some war chiefs supported immediate genocide, while others insisted that such action would rob them of the greatest hunt in Kythera history. To simply exterminate the humans would be to admit defeat, something their predator psychology could barely comprehend. Meanwhile, in human space, Dr. Sarah Chen had become something of a legend. Her viral weapons were being mass-produced in hidden facilities throughout the frontier colonies. But more importantly, her tactical philosophy was spreading among human military commanders like wildfire. Admiral Catherine Walsh stood before the holographic display in the Colonial Defense Force's new Strategic Command Center. The massive facility, built in just 6 weeks, coordinated anti-Kythera operations across 50 star systems. Sarah's intelligence network provided real-time data on hunter ship movements, allowing human forces to anticipate and counter their attacks. Status report, Walsh ordered. Commander Torres, now promoted and assigned to the Admiral's staff, highlighted key systems on the tactical display. 17 successful ambushes in the past 2 weeks. We've destroyed 43 Kythera hunting ships with minimal losses. And their response? They're pulling back from frontier systems, consolidating their forces. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing for a major offensive. Walsh nodded grimly. The early victories had been intoxicating, but she knew the Kythera wouldn't remain vulnerable forever. Their biotechnology was adapting to human weapons with each engagement. Soon the viral weapons would become ineffective and humanity would need new advantages. Where's Dr. Chen now? Walsh asked. Unknown, ma'am. Her last transmission came from the Kepler system 3 days ago. She's operating independently, hunting their scout ships and gathering intelligence. In fact, Sarah Chen was much closer than anyone realized. Her heavily modified pod drifted silently through the outer system of the Kythera's forward staging area, watching as dozens of bioships prepared for what appeared to be a massive assault. Through her advanced sensors, she observed the Kythera's latest adaptations. Their ships now carried biomechanical filters designed to neutralize viral weapons. Their hulls had been modified with redundant biological systems that could function even under genetic attack. Most concerning of all, they had developed new hunting tactics specifically designed to counter human ambush strategies. But Sarah had been adapting too. Her pod was no longer recognizable as human technology. She had incorporated captured Kythera biomatter into her ship's systems, creating a hybrid vessel that could mimic alien energy signatures while maintaining human weapon capabilities. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was becoming more like the hunters she fought. Her survival instincts had been honed to predatory sharpness. She thought in terms of stalking, ambush, and kill. The distinction between hunter and prey was becoming increasingly meaningless. Her sensors detected movement as a Kythera scout ship, separated from the main fleet. The vessel was clearly searching for signs of human surveillance, its biomechanical sensors sweeping space in expanding patterns. Perfect. Sarah activated her pod's new camouflage systems, mimicking the electromagnetic signature of space debris while moving into attack position. The scout ship passed within a few kilometers, its crew unaware that death was stalking them. The attack was swift and silent. Sarah's hybrid weapons penetrated the Kythera ship's hull and injected a new kind of viral payload, one that didn't just destroy biomechanical systems, but reprogrammed them. Within minutes, the scout ship's own technology turned against its crew, using their bio-neural interfaces to deliver lethal feedback directly to their nervous systems. More importantly, the compromised ship began transmitting false data back to the Kythera fleet. Sarah had learned to use their own communication networks against them, feeding misinformation that would compromise their next attack. The main human fleet received Sarah's intelligence 12 hours later. Admiral Walsh studied the data with growing alarm and excitement. The Kythera were indeed planning a massive assault, but their target wasn't a frontier colony as expected. It was Earth itself. They're going for the heart, Walsh murmured. Take out Earth and human resistance collapses. Or it becomes desperate enough to try anything, Commander Torres observed. Ma'am, Dr. Chen's data includes something else. Technical specifications for Kythera bioship construction. If we could capture one of their vessels intact, Walsh understood immediately. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been their ability to reverse engineer and improve upon alien technology. With a complete Kythera bioship to study, human scientists could develop countermeasures for every weapon, defense for every attack. But how do we capture something that can regenerate from any damage we inflict? Walsh asked. The answer came in Sarah's next transmission. She had been studying the Kythera for months now, and she understood their psychology better than any human alive. More importantly, she had a plan that would use their predatory instincts against them. The Kythera see themselves as apex predators, Sarah's recorded message explained. But every predator has one fundamental weakness. They cannot resist the ultimate prey. I'm going to offer myself as bait for a trap that will give us everything we need to turn this war around. Signal every ship in the fleet, Walsh ordered. We're implementing Dr. Chen's plan immediately. If this works, we don't just survive the Kythera attack, we win the war. But deep in the bio-neural networks of the Kythera fleet, adaptive algorithms were already processing the new data. The hunters were learning, evolving, preparing countermeasures for whatever the humans might attempt. The greatest hunt in galactic history was about to reach its climax, and neither side could predict who would emerge as the ultimate predator. Captain Rodriguez felt the deck of the New Hebrides defense platform vibrate beneath his feet as the quantum resonance batteries charged for the third time in 2 hours. The massive orbital station had been retrofitted with Dr. Chen's weapon technology in record time, transforming what had been a simple monitoring post into humanity's first dedicated anti-Kythera fortress. Contacts on long-range sensors, reported Lieutenant Chen, no relation to Sarah, though the coincidence wasn't lost on anyone. 12 ships, definitely Kythera configuration, approaching from the outer system. Rodriguez studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah Chen's first transmission, and human space had been transformed. Every major colony now had quantum resonance weapons. Every patrol ship carried the new technology, and defensive platforms like this one guarded the most vital systems. Let them come, Rodriguez muttered. Time to see if they've learned anything from their dead friends. The approaching Kythera fleet was unlike any previous hunting formation. High Commander Vexmac had personally redesigned their tactics after studying the Bloodseeker incident. The ships moved in a complex three-dimensional formation that maximized their defensive overlaps while minimizing their exposure to concentrated fire. Aboard the flagship Apex Slaughter, Vexmac observed the human defensive position with professional interest. The orbital platform was clearly armed with the new quantum weapons, its energy signatures unmistakable to Kythera sensors, but his fleet had been modified specifically to counter this threat. Bioarmor status? He inquired. All ships showing full adaptive coverage, his tactical officer replied. The quantum-resistant neural pathways are functioning optimally. Vexmac's species had not remained apex predators for millions of years by being inflexible. Each Kythera vessel now carried specialized biomechanical countermeasures, adaptive neural networks that could route around quantum disruption, redundant control systems that could function even under resonance attack, and most importantly, new hunting tactics that didn't rely on close-range capture. The first engagement began at extreme range. The human platform opened fire with its quantum resonance batteries, sending invisible beams of disruption toward the approaching fleet. But instead of the devastating effects seen in Sarah's original encounter, the Kythera ships merely shimmered as their adaptive armor absorbed and redirected the energy. Minimal damage to targets, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice tight with concern. They've developed some kind of resistance. Rodriguez had expected this. Sarah's intelligence briefings had warned that the Kythera would adapt quickly. Switch to pattern Alpha 7. Let's see how they handle multiple frequency modulations. The platform's weapons systems reconfigured themselves, cycling through different quantum resonance patterns in rapid succession. Some frequencies were partially effective, causing visible disruption to the bioship's hulls, but none achieved the catastrophic neural failures that had destroyed the original hunting pack. Vexmac allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as his fleet weathered the human attack. The adaptive countermeasures were working perfectly, but as the range closed, he began to suspect that the humans had been expecting this development. The orbital platform suddenly ceased firing its primary weapons and activated what appeared to be a different system entirely. Instead of quantum resonance beams, It began broadcasting a complex electromagnetic signal that seemed to have no immediate effect. "What are they transmitting?" Vexmac demanded. His communications officer worked frantically at her bioconsole. "Unknown signal type, High Commander. It doesn't match any known weapon system." The answer came 30 seconds later when the platform's real trap was revealed. Hidden among the asteroids surrounding New Hebrides were dozens of smaller weapons platforms, each one broadcasting the same electromagnetic signal. The combined effect created a massive interference grid that began disrupting Kythera bioship coordination protocols. Dr. Hawkins had been busy during the 3 weeks since Sarah's first transmission. Working with captured Kythera technology and Sarah's detailed sensor logs, her team had discovered that the aliens' greatest strength, their interconnected bioneural networks, could also be their greatest weakness. Neural cascade failure in progress, the tactical officer reported, as the Apex Slaughter's systems began to malfunction. "The interference is causing feedback loops in our coordination matrices." Vexmac watched in amazement as his perfectly coordinated fleet began to fall apart. Ships lost formation as their bioneural connections failed. Weapon systems fired randomly as confused neural pathways sent contradictory signals. Several vessels collided as their navigation systems tried to follow impossible course corrections. The humans had learned from their first victory and adapted their tactics accordingly, but Vexmac was not finished yet. "All ships, emergency protocols," he commanded. "Sever bioneural links and switch to individual hunting mode. Show these prey what happens when they anger true predators." The Kythera fleet transformed before Rodriguez's eyes. Instead of a coordinated formation, 12 individual hunting ships spread out across space, each one operating independently. Without their bioneural connections, they were immune to the interference grid, and their individual hunting instincts made them far more dangerous than any coordinated attack. "They're adapting again," Rodriguez observed with grudging respect. "All stations prepare for close engagement. They're coming in hard and fast." What followed was unlike any space battle in human history. The Kythera ships moved with predatory grace, using the asteroid field as cover while they stalked the human defensive positions. Each bioship was a living predator, capable of learning and adapting to threats in real time. The first human patrol ship to engage was the Courageous, a modified frigate armed with quantum resonance weapons. Captain Maria Santos thought she had the tactical advantage as her ship emerged from behind an asteroid to ambush a Kythera hunter. The alien vessel reacted instantly, its hull rippling as it adapted to the quantum attack. Biomechanical tentacles erupted from concealed ports, grappling with the human ship while living weapons burned through its armor. The Courageous managed to inflict significant damage before it was destroyed, but the Kythera ship immediately began regenerating. "They're learning from each engagement," Lieutenant Chen reported, as she watched the battle unfold. "Every ship we destroy teaches the others how to counter our tactics." Rodriguez knew they were in trouble. The humans had technological advantages, but the Kythera had millions of years of evolutionary adaptation on their side. This was exactly the kind of prolonged engagement that favored the hunters. But unknown to either side, Sarah Chen was watching the battle from her hidden position in the outer asteroid belt. Her escape pod had been extensively modified again, now serving as a mobile command center equipped with advanced sensors and communication arrays. She had been tracking the Kythera fleet since they entered the system, studying their new tactics and countermeasures. More importantly, she had been developing new weapons specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses she observed in their adaptations. "Time for round 2, Sarah muttered as she activated her pod's new systems. The bioships surrounding New Hebrides suddenly found themselves under attack from an unexpected direction. Sarah's pod had become something far more dangerous than an escape craft. It was now a prototype hunter-killer, designed specifically to stalk and destroy Kythera vessels. Her first target was the bioship harassing the orbital platform. Sarah's new weapons didn't use quantum resonance or electromagnetic interference. Instead, they employed a different principle entirely: biological warfare. The weapon was elegantly simple. During her weeks of studying captured Kythera biomatter, Sarah had identified specific genetic markers that were common to all their living technology. Her new projectiles contained engineered viruses designed to target those markers, causing catastrophic genetic breakdown in any biomechanical system they contacted. The Kethera hunter ship's hull began to dissolve as the viral weapon took effect. Its living armor turned against itself. Bioneural pathways suffered massive failures and regeneration systems went haywire. Within minutes, one of the galaxy's most feared predators was reduced to a dying mass of corrupted biomatter. Vexmac watched his ship die and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans weren't just adapting to Kithera tactics. They were evolving new forms of warfare specifically designed to turn the hunter's own biology against them. All ships, withdraw immediately, he commanded. This hunt is terminated. But Sarah Chen wasn't finished. Her pod began transmitting new data to the human defenders, sharing the specifications for her biological weapons and the tactical intelligence she had gathered about Kithera vulnerabilities. The hunt was far from over, but for the first time in galactic history, it was the Kithera who were running. The distress beacon reached the mining station, Series 7, 43 hours after the asteroid explosion. Station Commander Marcus Webb sat in his cramped office, reviewing mineral extraction reports when his communications officer burst through the door without knocking. "Sir, you need to hear this transmission immediately," Lieutenant Torres said, her face pale with excitement and fear. "It's from the Meridian expedition. They were supposed to be destroyed weeks ago." Webb looked up from his holographic displays. The Meridian had been headline news across human space when reports of its destruction reached Earth. 17 crew members lost to Kithera raiders. Another tragedy in humanity's expansion into hostile space. Memorial services had already been held. "Play it," Webb ordered. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice filled the office, crackling with static, but unmistakably alive. Her recorded message was clinical, precise, but carried an undertone of barely controlled fury that made Webb's spine tingle. She described the Meridian's destruction, her weeks of survival, and most importantly, her encounter with the hunting pack. "The Kithera can be killed," Sarah's voice stated with absolute certainty. "Their biomechanical technology has specific vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Their hunting psychology makes them predictable. I have detailed sensor logs and tactical analysis. Humanity doesn't have to run anymore." Webb leaned back in his chair, mind racing. Series 7 was a frontier mining operation, barely defended except for a handful of patrol ships and automated defense platforms. If the Kithera were really vulnerable to the tactics Sarah described, this intelligence could change everything. "Where's the signal coming from?" he asked. "Delta sector, approximately 18 light hours from our position," Torres replied. "The transmission repeats every 6 hours. She's still out there, sir." Webb made his decision. "Prep the Reliant for immediate departure. I want a full medical team and our best communications equipment aboard. And Torres, send copies of this transmission to Fleet Command, the Colonial Defense Force, and every human settlement within 50 light years." "Sir, shouldn't we verify, Lieutenant, if there's even a chance this woman has found a way to fight these bastards effectively? Every human in space needs to know about it. Send the transmissions now." The Reliant launched 6 hours later, its crew consisting of military advisors, xenobiologists, and communication specialists. But Webb had underestimated how quickly word would spread through human space. Sarah's message, encoded and transmitted through the network of comm relays, reached Earth within 3 days. Dr. Elizabeth Hawkins, Director of Xenobiological Warfare Research, reviewed the transmission in her secure office beneath the Geneva complex. She had been studying Kithera specimens for 2 years, ever since the first encounters with their hunting fleets. Every analysis confirmed the same devastating conclusion. Humanity was hopelessly outmatched. The Kithera were older, stronger, faster, and more advanced in every measurable way. Their biomechanical technology adapted to threats in real time. Their ships could regenerate damage that would cripple human vessels. Their weapons were living creatures that learned from each engagement. But Sarah Chen's data suggested something different. The sensor logs from her escape pod contained detailed scans of Kithera bioneural networks under stress. For the first time, human scientists could see exactly how the alien technology functioned, and more importantly, how it could fail. "The quantum resonance frequencies," Dr. Hawkins murmured as she studied the data. "They're disrupting the bioelectrical patterns that control their adaptive systems. If we could weaponize this effect." She activated her secure communication link to the Colonial Military Command. "General Morrison, this is Hawkins. I need to speak with you immediately about the Chen transmission. We may have just found our silver bullet. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of New Hebrides, Colonial Defense Captain James Rodriguez received Sarah's message while coordinating evacuation procedures. Kythera scouts had been detected in neighboring systems, and the planet's 3 million colonists were preparing for the worst. Rodriguez had lost his brother to a Kythera hunting pack 6 months earlier. The UCS Defiance had been patrolling trade routes when 12 hunting ships had emerged from hyperspace. The engagement had lasted exactly 4 minutes. No survivors. Cancel the evacuation, Rodriguez told his staff, studying Sarah's tactical analysis. If this data is accurate, we might not need to run anymore. His weapons specialist, Major Sarah Kim, looked skeptical. Sir, one successful ambush doesn't mean we can take on their entire hunting fleet. Dr. Chen caught them off guard, but they'll adapt. Maybe, Rodriguez replied. But look at these power requirements. The quantum resonance weapons she used don't need massive ships or exotic materials. We could mount them on fighters, patrol boats, even civilian vessels with the right modifications. Word spread through the Colonial Defense Force like wildfire. Within a week, prototype quantum resonance weapons were being tested at research facilities across human space. The initial results were promising. The technology worked exactly as Sarah had described, but the Kythera were also adapting. High Commander Vexmac received the report of the Bloodseeker hunting pack's destruction while aboard his flagship Apex Slaughter. The massive bioship pulsed with bioluminescent patterns of rage as he absorbed the impossible details. Show me the sensor logs again, he commanded his intelligence. Officer, the holographic display showed the final moments of the 3 hunting vessels, their destruction captured by long-range monitoring drones. Vexmac studied every detail, his compound eyes analyzing the energy signatures and tactics used by the human survivor. Quantum resonance weapons, he observed, his voice a low growl, crude but effective against our bio-neural networks. The prey has learned to fight back, High Commander, his tactical advisor noted. This complicates our hunting operations significantly. Vexmac's mandibles clicked in what humans might have interpreted as laughter. No, old friend. This makes the hunt infinitely more interesting. The High Commander activated the fleet-wide communication system, his image appearing on bioscreens throughout the massive Kythera fleet. Hundreds of hunting ships received his message simultaneously. My fellow hunters, Vexmac began. For the first time in generations, we face prey that has learned to bare its teeth. The humans have developed weapons that can harm us, tactics that can surprise us. They believe this makes them predators. His image paused for effect, allowing the significance of his words to penetrate. They are wrong. This makes them the ultimate prey. Across the fleet, hunting crews roared their approval. Bioships pulsed with excited patterns as their crews prepared for the greatest hunt in Kythera history. Orders went out to adapt ship defenses, modify weapon systems, and develop countermeasures for human quantum resonance technology. The humans had won a single battle, but the Kythera had been apex predators for millions of years. They would adapt, they would overcome, and they would claim their greatest trophy yet. But deep in the research facilities of human space, scientists and military planners were working with desperate intensity. Sarah Chen's data had given them hope, but they knew it was only the beginning. The quantum resonance weapons were first-generation technology, effective but limited. Dr. Hawkins stood before a holographic projection of Kythera bioship anatomy, her team of xenobiologists working around the clock to identify new vulnerabilities. If we can disrupt their bio-neural networks, what else can we target? She asked. Their regeneration systems? Their adaptive armor? Their living weapons? The race was on. Humanity had proven they could hurt the Kythera, but could they survive the inevitable retaliation? Could they evolve from prey to predator before the hunters adapted to their new tactics? Sarah Chen's message had changed everything, but the war for survival was just beginning, and somewhere in the asteroid fields of the frontier, the woman who had started it all was still fighting, still learning, still hunting the hunters who thought they owned the galaxy. The lead Kythera vessel, Bloodseeker, moved with predatory confidence toward what its crew believed was cornered prey. Captain Zextal flexed his primary hunting claws in satisfaction as he studied the readings from the damaged human pod. The small craft's power signatures were fluctuating wildly. Its hull showed multiple breaches and, most tellingly, Its pilot was making desperate course corrections that only served to trap her more completely within their hunting formation. Jextal's compound eyes shifted through the electromagnetic spectrum, analyzing every detail of his prey. Humans were a recently discovered species, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their vessels were crude, their weapons primitive, and their biology laughably fragile. This particular specimen had provided decent sport by surviving 3 weeks in the asteroid field. But now the hunt would reach its satisfying conclusion. "Deploy capture nets," Jextal commanded, his voice a harmonious blend of clicks and subsonic rumbles. "I want this one alive for the collection chambers." The Bloodseeker's biomechanical systems responded instantly. Specialized organs along the ship's hull dilated, revealing clusters of neural-guided capture filaments. These living weapons would wrap around the human pod, deliver paralytic toxins through its hull, and drag the occupant aboard for processing. But as the capture nets launched, Sarah Chen made her move. The hidden weapons arrays on her modified pod blazed to life with surgical precision. Coherent energy beams, invisible to standard Kythera sensors, sliced through the incoming capture nets like they were made of paper. The living filaments writhed and died as their neural pathways were severed by weapons technology the Kythera had never encountered. Tal's mandibles spread in shock as his primary capture system was destroyed in seconds. The energy readings from the human pod had completely changed. What moments before had appeared to be a dying vessel now showed power signatures that rivaled those of a military destroyer. "Impossible," hissed his weapons officer. The readings were verified. That craft was crippled. Sarah's pod spun gracefully, no longer tumbling out of control but moving with deadly purpose. Her next salvo targeted the Bloodseeker's sensor arrays, specifically the bioelectrical nodes that served as the ship's primary nervous system. The Kythera had evolved their technology to mimic their own biology, making their ships living creatures as much as machines. This gave them incredible adaptability and regenerative capabilities, but it also created specific vulnerabilities that Sarah had spent weeks studying. The quantum resonance beams penetrated the Kythera ship's organic armor and disrupted the electrical patterns of its sensor network. Suddenly, the Bloodseeker was partially blind, its sophisticated hunting senses reduced to basic proximity detection. "She's jamming our bioneural pathways," the sensor operator reported, his voice rising in pitch, a Kythera indication of extreme stress. "The prey is fighting back." This was unprecedented. In thousands of years of hunting across the galaxy, the Kythera had encountered species that could run, species that could hide, and species that could die bravely, but none had ever turned predator against them. The 2 flanking ships, Ripfang and Voidstrike, immediately altered their formations. If this was no longer a simple capture operation, they would adapt to a combat scenario. Their hulls rippled as defensive bioarmor thickened, and weapons pods emerged from concealed positions along their spines. Sarah anticipated this response. Her pod's computer systems, loaded with every scrap of intelligence the Meridian expedition had gathered, projected the Kythera ship's most likely tactical responses. She adjusted her course to take advantage of the asteroid field's gravitational anomalies, using the massive rocks as both cover and weapons. Ripfang fired first, launching a spread of living projectiles that could track targets and adapt their approach vectors in flight. These biomissiles were nearly impossible to evade using conventional methods. But Sarah wasn't using conventional methods. Her pod's shield generators created a localized gravimetric distortion that bent space around her vessel. The biomissiles, following their programmed tracking algorithms, found their target suddenly displaced by several kilometers. They struck empty space, their living guidance systems confused by the impossible physics of folded spacetime. The Voidstrike captain tried a different approach, firing rapid pulse energy weapons designed to overwhelm defensive systems through sheer volume. But Sarah's pod danced between the asteroids with inhuman precision, its course plotting assisted by quantum probability, calculators that could predict the most likely safe paths through the chaotic gravitational fields. What the Kythera didn't realize was that Sarah wasn't just evading their attacks, she was herding them into position. Each course correction, each apparently desperate maneuver was drawing the 3 hunting ships deeper into a carefully prepared trap. The largest asteroid in the field wasn't a natural formation. The Meridian expedition had been studying it for months before the Kythera attack, and Sarah had access to detailed geological surveys of its internal structure. More importantly, she knew about the deposit of unstable quantum crystals at its core, crystals that could be triggered to release devastating amounts of energy if stimulated by the right frequency of electromagnetic radiation. Sarah's pod swept around the asteroid's equator, the three Kithra ships in hot pursuit. Their formation had tightened as they followed her through the narrow passages between smaller rocks, exactly as she had hoped. All three vessels were now within the asteroid's destruction radius. "The prey seeks shelter," observed Jextal, his confidence returning as he watched the human pod disappear behind the massive rock. "She burrows like a frightened ground dweller. We will dig her out." The Bloodseeker rounded the asteroid at high speed, weapons charged and ready to deliver the killing blow. Behind it, Ripfang and Voidstrike spread out to cut off escape routes. They found Sarah's pod floating motionless in the asteroid's shadow, its power signatures barely detectable. To Kithra sensors, it appeared that the vessel had finally succumbed to accumulated damage. "Scan for life signs," Jextal ordered. "If the prey still lives, we take her. If she has died, we will still claim the corpse." The three ships moved closer, their sensor beams converging on the apparently disabled pod. None of them detected the quantum resonance transmitter that had been attached to the asteroid's surface during the pod's pass behind it. Sarah waited until all three ships were in optimal position before triggering the transmitter. The device sent a precisely calibrated pulse into the asteroid's core, exciting the unstable quantum crystals to the point of cascade failure. The explosion was spectacular. The massive asteroid didn't simply blow apart. It converted a significant portion of its mass directly into energy, creating a miniature star that lasted for nearly 10 seconds. The destruction radius expanded faster than light, catching all three Kithra ships before they could react. Voidstrike was vaporized instantly, its biomechanical hull offering no protection against the quantum fire. Ripfang managed to engage emergency shields, but the cascading energy storm overwhelmed its defenses within moments. The ship's living components screamed across electromagnetic frequencies as they died. The Bloodseeker, being farthest from the blast epicenter, survived the initial wave, but suffered catastrophic damage. Its hull was burned and twisted, its bioneural networks fried by quantum radiation. The ship tumbled helplessly through space, its crew either dead or dying. Sarah's pod, protected by its gravimetric shields and positioned in the blast shadow of a smaller asteroid, rode out the explosion with minimal damage. As the quantum fire faded, she surveyed the destruction with grim satisfaction. The hunters had become the hunted, and they had lost. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The Kithra hunting pack that had destroyed the Meridian was part of a larger fleet, and when these three ships failed to report in, more would come. Next time they would be prepared for resistance. She powered up her pod's communication systems and began transmitting on the emergency frequencies used by human colonies and trading ships. Her message was simple but urgent. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, survivor of the Meridian expedition. I have intelligence on Kithra hunting tactics and vulnerabilities. They can be beaten, they can be hunted." The war between predator and prey was about to begin in earnest, and for the first time in galactic history, the Kithra would learn what it felt like to be on the receiving end of the hunt. The ship drifted silently through the void, its hull scarred by micrometeorites and cosmic dust. To any observer it would appear lifeless, another piece of debris floating through the endless dark between stars. But within its cramped confines, Dr. Sarah Chen worked frantically at a makeshift console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered with dying power. The escape pod had been her salvation, and her prison for 3 weeks now. The research vessel Meridian was nothing but scattered atoms somewhere behind her, destroyed when the Kithra hunting pack had found their archaeological expedition. She was supposed to be dead. Everyone else was. Sarah paused in her work, remembering Dr. Martinez's final transmission before the ship's destruction. "They're not just raiders, Chen, they're trophy hunters. They collect specimens from extinct species." The irony wasn't lost on her that humanity might soon join that collection. Her scanner chimed softly. 3 contacts approaching fast. Sarah's heart hammered as she recognized the distinctive energy signatures, Kithra hunting vessels. Sleek predatory ships that looked more grown than built, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and intimidation. Through the pod's tiny viewport, she watched them emerge from the starfield like sharks materializing from deep water. Each ship was roughly twice the size of her pod, bristling with what appeared to be both technological and organic weaponry. The lead vessel's hull rippled with shifting colors, patterns she had studied in the xenoarchaeological records but never seen in person. The Kythera had been apex predators long before they achieved spaceflight. Their entire civilization was built around the hunt, the chase, the final moment of triumph over prey. They had evolved on a world where everything was either predator or food, and they had emerged as the ultimate survivors. Now they roamed the galaxy seeking new challenges, new trophies for their vast collections. Sarah forced herself to remain calm, even as the lead ship moved closer. She had studied their behavior patterns extensively during her research into extinct civilizations that had fallen to these very hunters. The Kythera preferred live prey to corpses. They wanted the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of the hunt. A drifting escape pod would be investigated, but not immediately destroyed. Her pod's communications array crackled to life, filled with the distinctive clicking and thrumming sounds of Kythera language. The translation matrix in her neural implant struggled with the dialect before finally providing meaning. Small craft, you are detected. Prepare for boarding. Resistance will enhance the hunt. Sarah's hands moved to the pod's manual controls. She had been preparing for this moment since the first day adrift. Every system had been modified, every circuit rewired. What appeared to be a helpless escape pod was now something else entirely. The nearest Kythera ship extended a capture tendril, a biomechanical appendage that could puncture hull plating and inject boarding organisms directly into a target vessel. Sarah watched it approach, her thumb hovering over a concealed switch. The tendril made contact with her pod's hull, and she felt the vibration as it began to penetrate. Perfect. She flipped the switch. What the Kythera hadn't detected was that her escape pod's outer hull now contained a network of microcharges, each one precisely placed to create a specific pattern of destruction. Not enough to destroy the pod, that would be too obvious, but enough to simulate critical damage from their boarding attempt. The explosions rippled across the pod's surface in a carefully choreographed sequence. To the Kythera sensors, it would appear that their boarding tendril had triggered some kind of defensive system, causing catastrophic hull failure. Atmosphere vented in controlled bursts, and the pod's power signatures fluctuated wildly. Most importantly, the pod began to tumble, apparently out of control, toward the nearby asteroid field. Sarah felt the artificial gravity cut out as she initiated the tumbling sequence. She strapped herself in and watched through the spinning viewport as the Kythera ships reacted. Their formation tightened, and she could see new patterns flashing across their hulls. Excitement, anticipation. They thought she was fleeing. The lead ship's captain would be pleased. A damaged prey vessel attempting to hide in an asteroid field was a classic scenario, one that would provide excellent sport. The Kythera would follow, taking their time, savoring the hunt. They had all the time in the galaxy, after all. Sarah's pod tumbled deeper into the asteroid field, apparently seeking shelter among the floating rocks. Her modified engines provided just enough thrust to maintain the illusion of desperate escape attempts, while actually following a carefully planned route she had calculated weeks ago. Behind her, the three Kythera ships spread out in a hunting formation, their bioluminescent patterns now pulsing with the deep reds and golds that indicated active prey pursuit. They moved with predatory grace between the asteroids, their hulls rippling as they adapted to the gravitational anomalies and radiation signatures of the field. The largest asteroid in the field loomed ahead, a massive chunk of iron and nickel that would provide perfect cover for what Sarah had planned. Her pod's trajectory would take her behind it, giving her perhaps 30 seconds of concealment from Kythera sensors. As the asteroid's bulk blocked the pursuing ships from view, Sarah activated the pod's true modifications. Hidden panels slid away to reveal equipment that definitely hadn't been part of the original escape pod design. Quantum resonance scanners, military-grade shield generators, and most importantly, a compact but devastatingly effective weapons array. The pod's computer systems came online with new programming, displaying tactical information about the pursuing Kythera ships. Sarah had spent 3 weeks studying every piece of data the Meridian had collected about Kythera technology, biology, and behavior patterns. She knew their ship's weak points, their typical hunting strategies, and most crucially, their overconfidence. The Kythera saw themselves as the ultimate predators. They had never encountered a prey species that fought back effectively, let alone one that could turn the tables on them. Their entire psychology was built around the assumption that they were the hunters and everything else was food. They were about to learn how wrong that assumption could be. Sarah's pod cleared the asteroid's shadow, and she saw the 3 Kythera ships converging on her position. Their hulls pulsed with confident hunting patterns, and she could detect the bioelectrical signatures of their crews preparing for the final capture. The largest ship moved into position directly ahead of her pod, probably planning to disable her engines with a precision strike. The other 2 ships flanked her, cutting off escape routes with practiced efficiency. Sarah smiled grimly and powered up her concealed weapon systems. The hunt was about to begin, but not the way the Kythera expected.